Do you find yourself solving a Rubik's Cube with a high turn speed, but you keep getting slow solves and you don't know why? After watching this video, consider your problem solved.
This is Problem Solved.
This video is the second video in a two-part series on how to get faster at solving a Rubik's Cube. It is highly recommended, but not required, that you see the first part of the series before watching this video. It is required, however, that you already know how to solve a Rubik's Cube. If you cannot currently solve a Rubik's Cube, please click here in order to learn how to do that. Then return to this video series in order to get faster. Let's get started. This video will teach you how to use fewer moves to solve the Rubik's Cube, which will allow you to solve it faster. For example, the beginner's method that you probably use right now, without the techniques that I will show you in this video, will take about 140 face turns per solve. Now, if you can do about 2 turns a second, then that means it will take you 70 seconds, or a minute and 10 seconds, to solve the cube on average. By using the techniques in this video, it's fairly easy to bring that move count down to about 100 moves, which, at the exact same rate of 2 turns per second, will mean it will only take you 50 seconds to solve the cube. That's pretty exciting, right? Okay, let's get learning this. Now, in order to solve the cube with fewer moves, you'll have to 1. Learn how to take advantage of lucky situations, and 2. Solve pieces more efficiently. Let's first talk about luck. Some solves are just lucky. They take fewer moves to solve, they go faster, just all in all, they're a lucky solve. Now, if you learn how to notice, take advantage of, and even force lucky situations, you can solve the Rubik's Cube even faster. The most basic way to notice a lucky situation is a technique called Color Neutrality. And this is the ability to start your solve by solving any color cross, not just white. Now, this is really advantageous because that means you have 6 different crosses to look at, 1 for each color. And that means you can look for the one that requires the fewest moves to solve. Now, let's look at the white cross for now. We notice we have 2 edges already facing up, which is good. We even have one of them that's already solved. However, this other one that's facing up isn't solved, which means that it's going to be kind of difficult to get this one positioned correctly without messing this one up. Furthermore, this one's in the right place, but it's backwards. That one will take even more moves to solve. So this white cross, even though it has 2 that are facing up, it'll take several moves to solve. Instead, let's look at and see if there's another cross that might be even easier. Here's this blue one that also has 2 edges facing up. But this white one and this red one are both solved. They're already done. We don't need to use any moves to solve them. Even better, when we look for the other 2 edges, here's one that's really close to being solved, and the other's right on top. So when we bring this down, in one move, we solve the orange edge, and now this one's ready to come down in the next move. So in 2 moves, we just solved the blue cross. We had a really lucky situation here, that because we were color neutral, we could look for and notice the lucky situation. I'd like to make a few last notes on how the rest of your solve will go when you start with a cross color other than white. In this case, I started with blue. When you get to your second layer, remember the rule for what determines a second layer edge. A second layer edge does not have this top color, in this case green. That means this yellow-orange edge belongs in the second layer, which we can see yellow-orange. It'll go right there. And so we can solve our second layer as normal, just looking for edges that don't have this top color. Then, when we're going on to the third layer and making our cross, we're not looking for edges that have yellow facing up, but edges that have the same color as the top, in this case green. So we have these 2, which make an L shape, and we can make our cross from there. From then on, the solve is just pretty normal. Beyond being able to solve any color cross, the cross can also be solved in 8 moves or less, every single time. 8 moves. Right now, you may take anywhere from 12 to 20 moves to solve your cross. Go ahead and apply the following techniques I'm about to show you to help you get that number down and closer to 8. Now, do you realize getting your cross down to 8 moves or less every single time will take a lot of work because some crosses are just really hard. Go ahead and start by shooting for another number like 10 to 13 moves before you try and move on to getting your cross done in 8 moves every time. For the first techniques I wish to show you, I will be solving with an orange cross. Now, when I first taught you to solve a cross, I told you look for an edge in the top layer that had this bottom color, in this case orange. So, here we have an orange-yellow and an orange-green. This orange-yellow we could solve by doing a front 2, notice the pieces backwards, and then do the algorithm to flip it around. But that would take 5 moves. And I just told you that you only need 8 moves to solve the cross. If we take 5 just to solve this edge, we don't have very many moves left to solve the rest of the cross. Instead, look for an edge that's already really close to being solved, like this one. This blue-orange edge is a single turn away from being solved. But there's more. If we position this orange-yellow edge above, like that, when we solve this blue-orange edge, the yellow-orange is now also really close to being solved. We just used 3 moves to solve these 2 pieces, as opposed to using 5 moves just to solve this one. This is the kind of thing that you can do to become much more efficient at building your cross. The next technique I wish to show you involves the white cross. Here we have the blue-white and the red-white edges already facing up and matching with this one. Now if we notice, the red edge is to the right of the blue edge. Also notice, the red center is to the right of the blue center. That means if we turn this down layer once, both edges will be solved. We can expand this for the entire cross. Orange is to the left of blue. Here's the orange-white. If we put this orange-white edge to the left of the blue edge, when we turn this down layer, all 3 edges will become solved, and leaving only this one white-green edge a single turn away from being done. And this is just the beginning. From here on, you can figure out your own stuff. Try and just play around with the cube until you figure out what works. This is what makes Rubik's cubing really awesome. You can play around and figure things out, and you can say, look, I did that. I figured that out, which is a really awesome feeling to have. Now let's move on to some other techniques for later in the solve that are just as awesome. Now let's talk about solving pieces more efficiently. In order to solve pieces more efficiently, you need more options to choose from while you're solving. Getting these extra options comes from learning more algorithms that are more powerful and that allow you to address more cases that could come up. The first algorithm I would like to teach you is the inverse trigger. This is really easy to learn, and it will save you dozens of moves per solve. The regular trigger was up, over, down, back. The inverse trigger is a little bit different. Goes over, up, back, down instead. This move is really helpful, especially on your first layer corners. Notice that we're beginning with yellow here. Sometimes when you're solving your first layer, corners will take 4 or 5 repetitions of the regular trigger to be solved. But using this inverse trigger, we can slash those to 1 or 2. Here's an example of a corner that would normally take 5 repetitions of the trigger move to solve. But if we do the inverse trigger, over, up, back, down, that corner has now been solved in 1 repetition as opposed to 5 repetitions of the original trigger. I also like to use the inverse trigger on a corner like this that would normally take 4 repetitions of the regular trigger, because now it will only take 2. Over, up, back, down, over, up, back, down. 2 repetitions, and that corner is solved. Cooler yet, the inverse trigger also helps you when you make your cross in the 3rd layer. For this case where you have an L, normally when you did the front, trigger, undo front, you'd end up with a line. But instead of doing the regular trigger, let's do the inverse trigger. Front, over, up, back, down, undo front. And you've skipped directly to the cross. No need to do the line. The inverse trigger can also help you solve the corners of the 3rd layer. For example, this one right here would normally take 4 repetitions of the upside down trigger to be solved. If we do the inverse trigger, we can do it in 2. So instead of doing down, over, up, back, down, over, up, back to solve this one, let's instead do over, down, back, up. Over, down, back, up. 2 repetitions to solve that corner, even though normally it would have taken 4. Lastly for this video comes the keyhole method, which slashes the moves required to solve the 2nd layer. Prepare to have your mind blown, because this is like flaming sweet. Here's how it works. The first step of the keyhole method is to solve your first layer minus one corner. This missing corner functions as the keyhole, thus the name of the method. So, we're going to continue on to our second layer with this missing corner. We're going to make our big T like we normally did. Here's an edge here. And we're going to look for which direction this goes. This one case, the green red will go to the left. Now instead of applying the left algorithm, we're going to hold the cube so that this big T is on the opposite side, so in our right hand. Because this goes to the left, we're going to hold it in our right hand. Now this keyhole position, the missing corner, is going to come right below this edge, right where this edge is supposed to go. Now we're going to use the inverse trigger to insert this edge. Over, up, back, down. Green, red, green, red. We will now restore the down layer to solve that piece. We'll go ahead and continue. Here's our next one. This would be a big T except for the fact that we're missing a corner. This one goes to the right, blue, orange, blue, orange. Since it goes to the right, we're going to hold it in our opposite hand, left. We will now move the keyhole position below where this blue-orange edge goes. Like that. We're now going to do the inverse trigger, but from the left side. Over, up, back, down. To insert this right there. You can then solve the last corner normally and the last edge normally to continue on with the rest of your solve. Keyhole can also be very helpful when you're trying to mess with the stuck edge. In this case, this one's backwards. We can move the keyhole position below the stuck edge and do the inverse trigger to pull it out. Over, up, back, down. And now we can solve this edge as normal. And as you practice keyhole, you can save even more moves. As you know, the basic pattern for keyhole is that you'll move the down layer to position the keyhole, insert the edge, and restore the down layer. But then for your next edge, you just move the down layer to another spot and restore it again. This repetitive break up and restore can be canceled out to save you more moves. Let me show you what I mean. Let's solve this edge right here, which goes to the right, and so we hold the cube so that it's in our left hand. Now we move our keyhole over, and inverse trigger to insert. Now normally, we'd restore this, which would take an extra move. But let's just let it sit there and save that move, while we move on to our next edge, right here. This one goes to the left, and so we're going to hold the cube so that it's in our right hand. Now, we can just move this over, and insert the edge, and we just saved extra moves because we didn't continually break up and restore. So what did I tell you? Pretty awesome stuff, right? But in order to drop your move count even further, below about 100 moves or so, you will have to learn a speed cubing method. And I will make videos on many of these at a future time, at which point I will put a card right here for you to click on. Thank you for watching this video. If it helped you out, go ahead and give it a like. If you wish to see these techniques in action, go ahead and click right here. Then, subscribe to my channel to be notified when I talk about speed cubing. This has been Problem Solved. Over and out.